In terms of building a strong team to sort of lead or host many of the network activities, then it was important first and foremost that we established a good base of communication. I don't think that these kind of things can work without respectful and strong lines of communication. So in that sense, very early on, we sort of sat down and talked about our expectations of how this network would run, but also our expectations of how we as leaders in the grant would manage the different workload associated with running the network. And it was very important to me and to my wonderful co-conveners that this felt as much as possible like a non-hierarchical space of organizing. So anyone's ideas were accepted, and we could sort of discuss anything, and anyone was sort of welcome to lead on different elements if they liked, etc. As the named PI on the grant, of course, I was more than happy to take on the sort of lion's share of admin where appropriate. But that didn't mean that I was sort of the leader, if that makes sense. It more so means that we continue to share everything and discuss. Where things arise in terms of having to check details or seeing if other people were having any other ideas about anything that we wanted to do, then we'd communicate either via email or via meetings, and basically made an effort to sort of stay in touch and be quite generous with our thoughts with one another, which I think was quite central to achieving what we've managed to achieve to date.
How we built a good collaborative team is, I think we all took responsibility for that. So we all, the five of us that started out as being the GW4 collaboration, we all put in the time and the effort to be able to not only just turn up for certain meetings, but to become friends and block out time to be with each other. So for us, we've always talked about the real importance of the fact that we would go and stay over in Cardiff or in Bath at a hotel. We'd go out for dinner. We would get to know each other, talk about our families, talk about those aspects of our lives outside of just the research, because collaboration needs a level of trust. And that trust, I think, only comes from building close collegiate relationships and friendships, which is essentially what our collaboration became.
There's a good question about what's the difference between leading an internal research group and a wider collaboration. I mean, many of the skill sets I think are probably very similar, certainly in my experience on there. But the biggest difference perhaps is that very often those who are working as collaborators with you, your collaborators, they've got other priorities. This is not the only thing they're working on. Whereas with an internal research group, it may be more directed, there may be more of a specificity about what's being done. But with collaborators, it might only be 5% of their time, maybe 10%, but not much more than that. And so managing those different constraints, those different challenges, opportunities, understanding often that your collaborators are working at a distance from you, working remotely, that's where you need a different set of approaches coming in. Yeah. And in fact, actually, one of the in some ways strange, but actually one of the good things about the pandemic was we became better, I think, at working remotely, more used to using tools like this, Zoom, so forth. So actually, communication has become a lot easier in the last 4 years. The downside of that is we don't meet as often, and so we lose some of the depth as well. So we have to find new ways of doing things.
I think in terms of communication, the scheme that works for us is to set like monthly meeting, or like it's just regular meetings, so that we know like we're on the same page, and we know like we need to make some progress in a particular period. So and I guess like that also would make it a very efficient way, so that we know we'll be like gathering together in this hour, and we need to think about what questions we have, what other things we need to discuss. And that would be easier for us to just set up the schedule. But like although sometimes it's hard to like find a suitable like time slot for everyone, and sometimes we need to balance like we need to like leave some out because like they just don't have the time for this. But I can also find another like time slot to catch up with them later. But I think it's important to like set some regular schedules of things just to check if things are working in the right way and set the plans for the next steps.
Within our collaboration, it was really important to us that we were a co-leadership team. So we agreed early on roles and responsibilities where each of us would be taking responsibility for something. So to begin with, when we were first meeting, we made a point of going to each university, and the nominated person at that university was then in charge of organising the day, the agenda of the workshop, and also what evening meal, where we would stay. So each of us had a definite role. So I think there's something in sharing the load, but also having one person who is the person that is going to continue to drive it. Because with how busy we all are as academics, you sometimes need that one person that's going to do that. Otherwise, all of the enthusiasm in the world isn't going to necessarily keep something driving forward.
I think it's important to make sure you're respecting the other members of the collaborating team. You need to be able to trust the other members of the collaboration, but it's also important that you do yourself invest time in learning about the other field, the way the other field works and operates, the timescales, the costs of the different disciplines.
I think the only practical advice I really would offer is have a good mentor, somebody that you can talk to, who's seen the challenges themselves, who's been involved in this. If you're just starting out, you're probably getting it right, but it's quite nice to have that, reasserted sometimes, give you a bit more confidence. And also things do go wrong. So it's quite good having a backstop who you can speak to as well, and who might be able to offer some pointers to other ways forward.